Namaskar, I'm Ashok Vyas, and today we have the special opportunity of talking to someone who has been active with Hindu Students' Council at Rutgers University as president of this council. And Nikunj Trivedi, after pursuing his study as in the field of management at Rutgers University, continued to pursue his commitment and his devotion for propagating correct understanding of Hinduism. There is much more that he has in his mind, on his plate these days. I have the pleasure of welcoming Nikunj Trivedi to our studio. Namaskar.
Namaste.
So now you are chairman of Hindu Students' Council.
That's right.
That is a big position, involves a lot of responsibility. How do you feel?
I consider myself the biggest servant. It's about balancing various things in life. So it's a responsibility, but I'm happy to have that responsibility on my shoulders. I really enjoy what I do, and I feel that's a service to our society, service to our community, and service to our dharma.
You refer to the word dharma, and that leads me to request you to share your understanding of dharma. What is dharma?
Sure. So dharma is a Sanskrit word. Basically, that means that which sustains. So any phenomenon, any set of natural laws, any idea, concept that sustains the natural order of things is considered dharma. Now, dharma can be defined in many ways, and I'm certainly not a philosopher, but there is a saying in Mahabharata, dharmo rakshati rakshitaha, which is dharma is that which, if you help sustain, will sustain you. So anything, whether it's your duties, whether it's a set of laws, set of rituals, or set of practices that create harmony in the world, that sustain the natural order of things in the world, is considered dharma. So very high definition, of course.
No, you simplified it and you made it very understandable. But let us understand from you, who has been instrumental in increasing your understanding about dharma? कोई बचपन की यादें हैं आपके साथ?
हाँ, sure. नहीं, मेरी actually I can tell you that my grandmother was the first source of inspiration for me. I was very young, 9 years old. I was very scared of being in the dark. So she taught me the first two stanzas of Hanuman Chalisa, Jai Hanuman Gyana Gunasagar, Jai Kapis Dihu Lok Ujagar. And she told me, whenever you feel scared, you start reciting this. And so I started sleeping with reciting that, and slowly I learned the whole Hanuman Chalisa. That was a big source of inspiration, gave me a lot of inner strength. And then over the years, Swami Vivekananda was a big inspiration for me. I learned a lot about him and his quest to preserve and protect dharma. And the Mahabharata has been a very big source of inspiration for me as well, particularly. So there's so many people who I can be thankful to, but if I had to name three sources of inspiration, these are the three sources.
One is your grandmother.
One is my grandmother. Second is Swami Vivekananda. And third is the Mahabharata.
So let's talk about your grandmother telling you to chant Hanuman Chalisa before sleeping.
Yeah.
Just a part of it. And then once you cross that age, maybe during your teens or after you cross your teenage phase,
Sure.
Did you question that how it's actually helping, or so that
Sure.
questioning mind increased your conviction, or it made it weak?
No, actually, there are two things. One is, things like that from a spiritual perspective, they grow on you. You don't know how that happens. There's no way you can explain things, but they just happen inside of you. So that kind of grew on me. But the questioning part came when I was actually, when we emigrated to the United States. We take a lot of things for granted in India. I was about 15 years old, and we came here. In high school, people start questioning your beliefs. People start questioning, why do you wear a dot on your head? Or, they're watching Indiana Jones movies. They're like, oh, do all Hindus eat monkey brains? So there are a lot of things that happen, and they question your beliefs. They question things like the caste system. They question, do Hindus, worship all these weird gods, who have all these, weird things going on? So then you realize that, wait a minute, that's not what I was taught, so you start to question all these things. But as you dig deeper and deeper, and which is exactly what I did, you start to get a firm conviction about who you are, where you come from, and what your great culture is. So I'm actually thankful for people questioning me that, because it helped me get a better knowledge of who I am. to dig deeper into our great treasure, great culture, which is Hindu Dharma, for example. And that's how I was able to increase my awareness and have a firm conviction that who I am today is I'm very grateful for my ancestors and for my Dharma.
Dharma word now reminds me of Dharma conference, which I also participated in. I covered part of it for ITV in 2003.
Sure.
It was a big event that involved many celebrities, be it Swami Dayananda Saraswati ji, Deepak Chopra, you name it. There were
Dr.
many
Kalam,
scholars.
yep,
Dr.
many
Kalam also addressed. So now, after 2003, it's happening now after 12 years. Why it took so long for another Dharma conference to take place in New Jersey?
So there are many different reasons. First and foremost, after 2003, we had 100 students working on it at that time. So it took a little while for us to, gather the strength to come back. It's a big endeavor for us. We've been planning it for about, I would say, 6 to 7 months right now. And it's been a big endeavor. So to take on something like this, it takes a lot of energy and time. But I think the time is appropriate because this is our 25th year as an organization. To celebrate something that's so large, 25th Silver Jubilee, we decided to do something large. And it was appropriate for us to celebrate the Dharma Conference this year, to organize the Dharma Conference this year. So while it took us a little while, I think we needed some kind of a impetus for us to come together and celebrate something big.
So now the dates that you have chosen, 11th, 12th, 13th
Sure.
September. 11th September has different references in our mind as far as different events that are connected with 11th September. Of course, 9/11, we all remember. It has changed the way we connect with each other in the world in a very tragic way.
Sure.
But at the same time, something happened on 11th September when Swami Vivekananda, who happened to have been the source that inspired you.
That's correct.
He addressed Parliament of Religion on
That's
11th
correct.
September.
It was on 11th September, correct.
So, has that guided selection of the date?
Yeah, actually, you're right, because we selected the date because the message of Dharma that was kind of introduced in a very concise and a impactful fashion was done by no other than Swami Vivekananda when he came to the U.S. during during Chicago address. He kind of changed the way people thought about Hindu Dharma. People thought about what they call the Hindu monk, essentially. And he inspired a lot of personalities in this side of the world, in the West, and particularly in the United States. But it's also important to keep in mind that while September 11th is considered, not such an auspicious day in that sense, it's very important because the message of Dharma, where we talked about Dharma sustains harmony. So Dharma is the principle that actually brings about harmony. If you follow Dharma, for example, if you follow the principles of Dharma, it can create a better world. And what we're trying to show as part of the Dharma Conference is that, yes, there are violent conflicts in the world, and the message for Dharma, the need for Dharma, to follow Dharma is more important today than ever before. There are always negative forces in the world, the Asuric Shaktis that we call, that will be prevalent. It was Al-Qaeda back then. Today is ISIS, tomorrow there'll be something else. So the need for Dharma, need for the message of Dharma to create harmony, to create balance in the world is more important than ever.
The need to create harmony and sharing that message, of course, is important, but how it is shared and who is in a position to effectively convey that message. So creativity as well as authenticity of the message while you were visualizing the concept of this whole conference probably must have been at the back of your mind. So share with us how the outline of this conference happening on 11th, 12th, 13th September has taken its form.
Yeah, so it's just obviously a team of people from the community as well as from the students from HSC who came together and said, okay, there are two aspects that we want to show here, what we call Dharma for the self. So how can we sustain ourselves by, whether it's the yogasanas, and not just exercise, but the philosophical aspect of yoga that actually helps us sustain ourselves, whether it's the physical self or the spiritual self. And then, how can you sustain the outer world? Following the concepts of Dharma as I talked about, the principles, the rules and regulations, the duties, the obligations, for example, that are governed in this philosophical idea of dharma, we can create a better world. So we're trying to show that, an individual can be in harmony, and then the world can be in harmony by following the concepts of dharma. Both from like a yoga perspective, like yoga, philosophy of yoga, as well as the outer side. So in the outer side, we're exploring things like, how do you sustain the environment, for example? How do you follow the Hindu principles of dharma to sustain the environment? How do you work? Everybody talks about rights today. The Hindu concept is not just about rights; it's also about duties and obligations. What are our duties to the world? How are we destroying the world? How can we make the world a better place by following the noble concepts of dharma? So one side will be focused on the outer aspects. How do you take the principles and sustain benefit the outer world? And then the inner side. How do you sustain the inner self, whether it's physical or spiritual, by following the concepts of dharma?
Following the concept of dharma together makes it even more interesting and sometimes more intense experience. But by and large, we hear that it's all individual. It is your direct contact with the infinite that you explore through your practices. So as a Hindu, do you see Hindus are good when they are working alone? Is there something that prevents them from collectively working in an effective and organized fashion?
Sure. I think that the dharma, there's many different levels of dharma. I think that there's dharma for the self, like the swadharma. What you're supposed to follow is yourself as a Hindu, or what dharma is not just Hindu, but Indic traditions. You have Jain dharma, Bauddha dharma, Sikh dharma, etc. So swadharma, the reliance on yourself, or ensuring that you are in communion with Ishvara, for example, that's there. But at the same time, if we're all individualistic, the problem that we face is, how do you run society? So there is a collective sense of dharma also. Dharma for the society, we have, like, if we were individual today, we would not care about our family, for example. And if we don't care about a family, there's no harmony in the family. Similarly, if you don't care about your society, there's no harmony in the society. There are obligations that we have towards our society, and same thing in the world, because we live in this world. If we don't care about things that impact us today, we will have issues essentially of sustaining ourselves. You could sit at home and do puja, which is great, but at the same time, you have to also understand that this world runs in a different way. It's not just yourself. There are things that impact you from outside, and therefore you have to understand what your obligations, what your duties are to the world in order for us to come together and have a better sense of, as a society. Of course, Hindus have a challenge that because of a lot of colonization and a lot of other issues that have happened for thousands of years, we have forgotten a lot of the kind of the old philosophical ideas, philosophical, what I would say is philosophical link that we used to have. So I think that, we can go on and on about this, but the point here is that there are a lot of things that Hindus need to understand of why we have become more individualistic and not as a society. So I think that it's a longer, I would say, a longer discussion. But for now, we could just think about that. Okay, swadharma is important, but at the same time, our duties and obligations to our society and the world are also important. We live in this world, after all.
Our duties towards the world are important. That is the idea with which Chairman of Hindu Students' Council, Nikunj Trivedi, is committing himself to a mega project. When I say mega project, there's a conference, Dharma Conference, that is happening in New Jersey after 12 years, and the scope of this conference is quite big. When we say big, it is decided based on the scope in terms of the content that would be there, as well as the participants. So who are you expecting to be addressing this conference?
Sure. You're pretty familiar with back in 2003, we had 2,000 people from 20 countries and 70 different universities. We had the who's who there. So this time also we are expecting something similar. We're expecting between 2,000 and 3,000 people from 20 countries and 50 to 70 different universities. So we are expecting people who are college students, young professionals, as well as adult community members all coming together for the weekend. We have invited several prominent spiritual leaders, starting from Puja Shri Shri Ravi Shankar to Puja Sadguru Jaggi Vasudev Ji to Puja Baba Ramdev Ji, and a whole host of other scholars, from example Dr. David Frawley, Sri Rajiv Malhotra of Infinity Foundation. We have a NASA scientist, Dr. Kamlesh Lalla, and many others that we have invited. We have we're expecting celebrity guests from around the world. We're expecting important political and business leaders, whether it's from the US or from around the world, to come. We're expecting some very senior Indian political leaders also to either address the conference via video conference or being physically present here. So all in all, we're going to have a multitude of very prominent speakers and personalities coming to the conference.
So Nikunj, working for a conference of this nature and then coordinating activities amongst your volunteers, because at the end of the day, all these are young, either students or young professionals. So how that challenge is overcome by your team?
Yeah, it's definitely a big challenge, and we are reaching out to the community, and anyone who's interested in helping us in the conference, more than welcome. We have several youth. We have about 20 to 25 youth from different walks of life working on it right now. We are looking to expand the teams. We are actually reaching out to people in major metropolitan areas, whether it's New York, New Jersey, Chicago, Bay Area, down south by Houston. We have Miami, Orlando, LA, for example, several different cities where, even including Boston, and even internationally. So we are reaching out to our counterparts or other youth organizations in the UK, the Netherlands, India, Canada. We also have HSC chapters in Canada. So the idea is that we want to create an international team who is working on different aspects of the conference. So it's certainly a challenge, but I think that we are all inspired. We're all really excited about it, and we want to make a difference. So that's why we want to do this conference.
You want to make a difference, and you made a difference as president of Hindu Student Council at Rutgers University. So Nikunj, tell me, based on the principles that has become a part of your approach in life from Hindu scriptures, what are the top 2 points that you think comes to you from, say, Bhagavad Gita, which helps you in becoming a good manager?
Sure. So I would say my first and foremost, and everyone knows this, famous verse, Karman nevadhikaraste ma phaleshu kadachana. The idea here is, we all have to do what we have to do. We don't have the rights to think about the results. We don't have access to the results. What the Lord says is that we can only do the karma yoga. So I'm really inspired by the idea of karma yoga because I think everyone in life has a role to play in this society. My role to play in this world for this particular birth that I'm in is to serve the society, serve as much as possible as a offering to the Lord. So that's what inspires me from a true karma yoga perspective. The second thing inspires me is what we call rina. Rina it's a Sanskrit word which means debt. It's a debt that we owe to our ancestors, to the rishis, to our motherland, for example, where we all come from, for where Hindu Dharma supposedly comes from. We owe a debt that all these people, all of these ancestors have sacrificed their time, their efforts, their blood, sweat, and tears to make sure that our society is sustained. And so we as Hindus, we as youth, owe them this debt that is because of their sacrifices that they were actually able to sustain us. And this is why I am Nikunj Trivedi today. And I'm proud to be that, for example.
So proud, Nikunj Trivedi. There are some students who, when they come across others criticizing their traditions, they feel disheartened, and some of them actually consider not owning to their own traditions because of the kind of pressure that they find in their surroundings. So, being at Rutgers as a student,
sure.
Did you come across some parallel situations where some students felt left out because the way they practiced their religion was not given due respect?
Yeah, sure. I mean, the reason HSC was started, for example, even before me, was because back in the 90s, it was on campuses you couldn't even it was hard enough to call yourself Indian, and then you want to call yourself Hindu or something else. So people had all kinds of misconceptions. So Rutgers, even though there's like thousands of Indian students and people from the South Asian descent, I guess, essentially, or from the Indian subcontinent, you will see that even there are a lot of misconceptions. So when I was taking a class in Hinduism, people had all kinds of these theories about Hindus, even in class. So they used to giggle in the back when they heard like the Kali, for example, oh Kali Ma, like all these weird things and weird practices, even though they were in a Hinduism class, for example. So even at Rutgers, we had those issues. But I think that knowledge is the best weapon. So we, as Hindus, or myself particularly, I would say I went out and studied and learned a lot about it. It's part of my passion over the last several years. I've been studying a lot about different things about our history, about our rich tradition, religious beliefs, etc. And that armed me well to counter some of the misconceptions. And how do you take the dialogue back? We're always defending. But it's time for us to not just defend, but proactively educate people also. So besides the fact that we were defending, or rather counteracting the misconceptions, we were also proactively saying, well, this is what Hindu Dharma is about. So we were doing a lot of awareness work on campuses, and a lot of HSC chapters today on campuses do that also. So both proactive and reactive.
Very nice. Talking about the proactive approach, share with me what are the main programs, call them programs, or regular activities that are part of Hindu Student Council in order to increase awareness about Hinduism.
Sure, we have a lot of on-campus and off-campus programs. We have our bi-weekly meetings, whether it's the Gita sessions or just discussions about different things about Hindu Dharma, history, etc. To conferences, seminars, retreats. We have workshops that specifically focus on like Hindu Dharma 101, what I would call it. We also have educational series, interfaith panels, where we sit on and talk about what makes Hindu Dharma different from the rest, for example, or why is Hindu Dharma what it is, for example. So there are a lot of times we sit on these interfaith panels to talk about the Hindu side, for example. And then on campus, we were also doing a lot of awareness programs. For example, like Holi is very famous, right? So rather than just spraying colors at each other, what we do is we make it a point that first 5 minutes before the whole celebration starts, we actually talk about the significance of Holi. Same thing in Diwali or in Navratri. Everyone loves to do Garba. But we actually, before we start Garba, we actually talk about for the first 10 minutes about the significance of Navratri, what are the different ways it's practiced, and then we also start with the Arati, for example, and then go and do the Garba. So I think that creates a different atmosphere. And then there are a lot of fun things we do too. We do like quizzes and competitions that talk about different questions about Hindu Dharma, history, technology, all of these things, contributions of Hindus to human society. All of these things help us educate people on campuses.
Nikunj, share with me in your observation, what are the top 2-3 myths about Hinduism that many people have, including some Hindus also probably do not see what their tradition is telling them correctly.
Yep, sure. I mean, there's a big myth. I mean, there's a lot of research that has come out, and I was under the same myth as well, that Hinduism is nothing but caste system. It's a very rigid system that everyone just has this caste that, you can't get out of it, none of that stuff. So, I think that's a myth that people have even today. There's a lot of research out there. I don't need to go into the details right now, but there's a lot of research that challenges the idea of caste. First of all, it was a Portuguese word that was rigidized by various, outside forces, for example, the British, for example. The real system was the Jati Varna Dharma system, is what they call. There's a gentleman by the name of Rajiv Malhotra in Princeton, New Jersey. He has written some very good books. I would suggest people to read those books. One example is Breaking India, where first few chapters, they talk about how some of these systems were put into place. There's a book called Indra's Net, and a third book called Being Different, An Indian Challenge to Western Universalism. I would suggest everyone to read those 3 books by Rajivji that shed a lot of light on this misconception. Other myths are that Hinduism has nothing great to offer. prior to the British coming in, India has the largest GDP in the world. Over 30% of GDP was in India's GDP was 30% of the world's GDP, and India was the only source of diamonds in the world. A lot of things that most Hindus don't remember.
So Nikunj, looking at the time constraint, and probably we'll have another session with you where we'll talk extensively about various myths that surround Hinduism. But for now, let us conclude. What are your expectations briefly from the community, how they can support, and why should someone watching you right now consider to be a part of this conference as an attendee? And is there any tip that you want to offer to them as to how they can move forward in this direction?
Sure. Yeah, definitely. We urge everyone, regardless of their age, to come to the conference to learn. Obviously, the youth is our primary target, but at the same time, come and learn more about the conference. We're looking for donations. Obviously, it's a big endeavor, so the community can help us by donating funds. We're also looking for support, on-site help. For example, they can go to our website, dharmaconference.com, and sign up for volunteering. They can register and come out and learn really about how the youth want to reconnect back to their roots and experience the various aspects of Dharma. Some of these misconceptions we talked about, the myths. They can learn how to take the dialogue back and understand those better, for example.
Wonderful. Thank you very much, Nikunj Trivedi. Joining me today, Nikunj, Chairman of Hindu Students' Council, working with a team of volunteers to make a grand 11th, 12th, 13th September 2015 Dharma Conference at Raritan, New Jersey. Thanking him for joining us and enlightening us, and thanking all of you for being with us. This is Ashok Vyas.